Welcome back. You're watching The Market. And as we stand right now, you have the Nifty 50 that's holding comfortably above the 16,300 mark. There seems to be just a tad bit of consolidation at the broad end, the very broad end of the market. Small cap seeing just a tad bit of consolidation at this point. But let's focus in on earnings. Metropolis has posted its results for the quarter ended June, quarter ended July, and you have sales that have come in at 326 crore. You have a PAT that has come in 74 crore. We've got the management joining in. Ameera Shah, who's the promoter and managing director of the company, is joining in to speak to us. Thank you so much, Ms. Shah, for taking the time. I do want to start by asking about the COVID and non-COVID business. What was the split like during the quarter, and what stood out to you? What was the highlight of this quarter gone by?
It's been a very interesting time because obviously wave 2 of COVID hit us in April and May. Depending on which part of the country you were in. If you were in West India, then it probably hit you in March and April. If you were in North India, it hit you in April and May. COVID also got split into 2 quarters in West India. So we actually saw with wave 2 coming in, obviously patients, it was a terrible wave and patients were very careful to want to stay at home and be under lockdown as per the government requirements. That obviously had a slight impact on non-COVID, not as significant as last year. But there was obviously a slight impact as well. So we saw that COVID revenues were at about 65 crores for the quarter, and the balance was non-COVID. COVID contributed about 19% of the revenues for the quarter. Non-COVID was very interesting actually, because while we had seen almost a normalization of non-COVID revenues in Q4 and a positive growth actually, Q1 obviously there was a slight dip because like I mentioned, we were under lockdown. But overall, I think the trend is that non-COVID is increasing, and patients who were coming to us for COVID with their families are now coming back to us for other tests, because other diseases and other infections, obviously because they trust the brand, they've enjoyed the experience of engaging with us, and they know that we're sort of there for them when they need it.
Absolutely. And it's also a factor of the fact that we've seen infections drop. Hope that continues to be the case. But let's talk about digital. And that's clearly something that a lot of brands are now focusing on in the space, in the healthcare space as well. What is the kind of response that you've seen on digital? And is it a substantial shift for you?
About a year ago, we started focusing on sort of digital acquisition of consumers and patients and finding a way to support them when they're looking online for data or content around diagnostics. And that's an area that we have, worked on and done reasonably well on. We are currently seeing about 8%. We reported 9% actually last quarter of our revenues are coming from patients who are looking online for some sort of support or help. The other area that we are working on is actually building a digital experience for consumers that make it very simple for them. So that like in other industries, whether it's food delivery or whether it's e-commerce, where they can go online and they can get to an app, or they can get to a portal and they can pay online, they can order online, they can view, engage online. We're working in the same direction. Some of the pieces are already in place and available to consumers, and some of them will become available in the next few months. But overall, I think Metropolis is moving towards a seamless digital experience in making sure that we provide consumers with a very simple way of accessing us when they want to through digital channels. And of course, patients who are older and may not want to engage through digital can do so in the offline, more traditional methods possible.
Right. Ameera, wanted to understand how things are currently in terms of expansion for you at Metropolis, spreading of network. Where do you see the expansion headed?
Last quarter we announced, talked about building 90 new labs and 1,800 collection centers all across India in the next 3 years. And that's a program, a very aggressive program that we are actually working on. We've already added about 4 labs this quarter and about 150 odd centers this quarter. And we are heading in that direction of completing this target. The reason we want to do this is because we believe that in cities like Bombay, Chennai, Pune, Surat, etc., where we are leaders, we want to be able to get even closer to our patients. And of course, home services provides that, but some patients still prefer walking into centers. And also in many cities across the country, we don't have today a lab. While we may have a center, collection center, we want to be able to provide them routine tests also quite quickly. With people now doing things more and more locally and not coming to metros, we believe that this becomes an important part of our strategy as well. So I think the geographical expansion will definitely continue. The channel expansion is continuing. Like we said, home services is an area that we are growing quite aggressively and investing in as well. And of course, test expansion will continue as our R&D department keeps adding new tests every year.
So would you be looking to raise funds? Because we understand that you were.
Well, we passed an enabling resolution because as we know that, board has to sort of pass a resolution to keep it ready. We've passed an enabling resolution that at any point of time, if funds are required, then we have the ability to do so. At this point of time, that's the only action taken.
Hi, Ameera. This is Mubina as well joining in. In this last 1 year, perhaps propelled by the kind of demand we have seen due to COVID-19, we've seen a lot of smaller diagnostic centers pop up across the country. How do you see this entire scenario play out once COVID has passed? And we are praying and hoping that it passes soon. But how do you see then the diagnostic space shape up in terms of market share that you have, the market share that some of these smaller diagnostic centers as well have managed to gain in this last 1 year?
See, if you actually look out of the 100 to 150,000 centers that we have labs in India, actually there's sort of a pyramid structure where at the top you've got sort of the 4 national chains, obviously Metropolis included. And then at the second level, you've got regional labs, which are maybe 30, 40 in numbers in each state, where they are, independent labs which have managed to grow. They've got now multiple centers in one city or in 2 cities, and they're sort of a regional hub in that particular location as well. And together, this top layer of 4 national chains and these 30, 40 regional labs together sort of constitute what we call the organized market, which today is still less than about 10 to 12% in India. And the rest, which are sort of the bottom, are sort of the individual labs, most of which are non-pathologist run labs, and frankly do very, very small, 1 lakh, 2 lakh kind of revenue per month. And they have sort of very small consumer base that comes to them regularly. What we've seen during COVID is that out of the 100 to 150,000 labs, only 2,000 labs were approved for COVID testing. So what's happened is the visibility, the number of patients, the volumes for COVID have sort of concentrated in these 2,000. And of course, out of these 2,000, if you count the top 100 labs of India, have done the majority amount of COVID testing, right? Because most of these 2,000 also had the ability to do 50 tests a day or 100 tests a day of COVID. Very few like us have had the capability to do 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 tests a day. So I think when you see non-COVID and as the digital health ecosystem also expands, I think you'll start to see a lot of movement from unorganized, I believe, to the organized sector, which will now also include sort of the digital health players. And also we have seen, obviously, there are a bunch of regional players who are looking to also exit as either they don't have a succession plan or they feel that, now I'm not sure which way to grow. And they are also looking to partner with larger brands. So I think there's a lot of things happening in the industry at this point, but I think all of it will lead to a better consolidation of the industry.
Okay. Going forward, Ameera, how do you see the mix? I know you briefly alluded to it in the previous answer. How do you see the non-COVID business grow? What sort of mix do you see for the business overall? And also, if you could talk to us about the margin contribution from both mix, both the kind of businesses.
So look, I think nobody's really tracking the 2 businesses separately because you're using similar infrastructure, you're using common people, common services, admin. So I don't think anyone's tracking it separately. What we do know is that if you're able to run it efficiently, COVID testing is able to contribute to the bottom line, to the group profit, only because your main costs, your fixed costs are already taken care of. by non-COVID. So I think that's the best insight you will get at this point in terms of the margin profile. I think as far as non-COVID and the trend, like I said, I think keeping in mind that there may be a third wave upcoming in next month or months later, that obviously will impact the COVID testing that will go up in that particular month or quarter, and it will potentially slightly dent the non-COVID, depending on the intensity of potential third wave. So for this year, I think till our vaccination levels in India reach 70-80% for the whole country, I think we should estimate, like we are seeing in other countries, that we keep having potentially waves that keep coming. How often, I think difficult for anyone to gauge, but every 6 months or so, till we get to that vaccination number. And every time those waves come, obviously diagnostic testing companies like ourselves have a very big role to play. And the focus will move slightly to COVID during that period because patients obviously are focusing on that. And then when COVID comes down, again, the non-COVID starts to increase.
All right. Okay. Well, Ameera, as always, a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about Metropolis, the whole diagnostic sector as well. Very
Thank you.